All right, welcome back to Form Check Friday. For those who maybe clicked on this video for the first time, we're gonna look at some viewers' videos and we're gonna help them with their technique. If you're looking for a specific lift, check the timestamps down below. And if you wanna submit to have yourself thrown up on the screen behind, beside, in front, over top of me, there's a link in the description box below that gives you all the details. CalgaryBarbell.com is probably the easiest way to get there.
All right.
What are we starting with, Dill?
Well, this guy won.
Sorry, I didn't introduce us. This is my host, Dylan, and I'm the host, Bryce.
This guy won the random number generator lottery, form check lottery, whatever you want to call it.
2 times.
Yeah. Because last week.
2 times.
Last week was Chow's deadlift. This week is Chow's squat. And he gives the same amount of context. So this is the 6th week of the Calgary Barbell program, and he was bodybuilding prior to starting powerlifting.
Okay.
And this is 140 kilos.
All right. So, again, you know, really great basics. You know, I think you do a good job getting into a pretty solid position before the unrack here. I like that you take your time getting that bar where you want it. You get nice and tight for the pick. Walkout's decent. We could probably cut some of those extra steps at the end, but overall, we end up in a pretty darn good spot here. Where I start to see some issues is in this initiation of the squat. I think we need to work on the hinge, and if you look back a few episodes, we had Dylan with the broomstick demonstrating the hinge, but the old one arm under, one arm over, broomstick down your back, and just get into the habit of sort of tilting so that we're loading up the hips and hamstrings, not necessarily extending the back, because you can see the actual shape of your brace and your trunk change here. And we're kind of just disjointed a little bit as we sit back. So what I would recommend, again, is trying to get your head more in line with your trunk. Probably means you're gonna be looking a little further down instead of straight out. And it's gonna mean we're a little less extended. Now, if we watch this right into the very bottom, you maintain extension pretty well, but then on the way up, we got this like nice, kind of straight as an arrow position, and this is more what I'd like to see in sort of throughout the whole lift. So a little bit of work on the bracing, ribs down, work on the hinge, and the other thing I'm going to recommend is probably narrowing your stance just slightly. It looks like as we come up, we see a fair bit of these knees moving inwards, and most of the time, that's just your hips saying, hey, yeah, we got to go there if you want to push hard. So my general advice is move the ankles and the feet so they're underneath where the hips want to put your knees, right? So if your knees come in to be a little more straightforward, put your stance there, be more straightforward. That way we're not going to see this big amount of sort of dynamic movement, especially in the bottom of the squat, right? We don't really want to see a whole lot of shifting and changing of positions as we're trying to create a lot of force. I think that's also going to help with the feet. You know, we're getting a little on the insides, we're a little forward, we're back on the heels there. So I think if we can cut out some of the extraneous movement from the hips, moving the knees around, we're going to be able to keep balance a little more firmly through the feet, and it's going to all feel better.
Next up, number 2, we got Logie.
Number 2.
This is a bench press, 70 kilos for 5.
This is a bench press.
18 years old from Iceland, been going to the gym for around 1.5 years and been focusing on power building in the recent months.
All right.
That's what we
That's
got.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this looks to me like a close grip bench, right? If it's not, I've been memed because I say this so often, but have you tried widening your grip? A little bit wider grip. A lot of times we can get a little bit more pec. We can maybe shift a little bit more weight. So, you know, I can't help myself here. My critiques are going to be tailored towards people wanting to lift more weights. That's what I know. That's what I live. That's what I love. Lift, laugh, love. We're going to get it on a sign. Now, the other thing I'm seeing here is we're picking the head up, which almost always means our chest is falling, so we're not holding a good back position, right? We want to dig these legs and feet in. That's a whole other thing, right? Because we're just kind of on the insides of the feet. Push those knees out, drive those heels down, and get those legs pushing back this way along the bench. That's going to help you drive your chest up to meet the bar. And let's work on some control, right? We're coming down. We're kind of dropping from here to here, which means we're going to miss the training effect of, you know, a full 2.5, 3 inches of the range of motion. By skipping that, you're not going to get as much growth Be it, for hypertrophy, you're not going to get as much strength development at that joint angle because we're not really training it. So I want you to work on that control. I want you to think about widening your grip. I want you to, instead of picking your head up, keep your head down and drive your chest up into the bar. And I think if we can do those things, we're gonna see some gains. So I wish you the best of luck with your lifting journey, Logie. And if I was wearing one, I'd be taking my hat off to you for getting that kind of work in and doing the thing when you're 18, because I did none of that when I was 18. I didn't start till I was 23. So good on you.
Next up, we got Rick. This
better not be Astley. Okay.
Nope. This is I should do that one day. This is a 430 pound deadlift for one. Rick is 36 years old and he's been lifting since 15. Rick
36,
says,
best age.
Yep.
Best age a person could possibly be.
I think it's too old, but moving on.
Wow, man. I take that personally.
I think I have a confidence issue as well as bad bracing. I felt pretty good about this lift and went for 455 about 15 minutes later and failed just below my knee.
Okay. So I don't think that you have many issues at all here, Rick. First off, you're an 87 baby, so obviously strong as hell in the deadlift. The only thing I'm seeing here, and this probably happens to a greater magnitude when you got a little more weight on the bar. This initial position is so good. I actually love this. I think this is a phenomenal position. I wouldn't change a thing. Unfortunately, what happens is it does change though, right? So what happens is before the bar comes off the floor, we see the hips come up like this. I kind of wish I could see from the front because there's a couple things that I would look at. I would look at your lift from the front and see if we're crowding the knees. See if the narrowness of your grip is forcing you to angle your knees in from your hips based on where you're standing and your sort of hip morphology. If so, that inward angle there is gonna be really hard to get the work that we need to out of the hips and hamstrings off the floor to maintain this position. So what happens is, boop, we end up having to go up there to find that tension. If we're not crowding the knees, right? If we're looking at your lift from the front and you're pretty much straight on hip to knee and we're relatively stacked, the shins aren't pointing inwards or anything like that, the biggest thing is gonna be patience. Patience. Press down through your toes, find that leg drive feeling, and even if it feels harder for the first 2 or 3 inches off the floor, it's gonna make a world of difference, especially with maximal weights, and you're gonna be able to get a lot better work out of it. The other thing I might look at is potentially loosening the belt. Sometimes a really tight belt can make it hard to hold your brace or to get a good one in the first place. So loosening your belt 1 notch might be something worth checking out. Again, overall, you got a great deadlift here. Biggest thing is just trying to get rid of this little bit of extraneous movement from start position to the bar actually coming off the floor. Keep those knees wedged forward, find your quads, and yeah, let that deadlift explode, man. Who's this?
This is our last submission.
Whoa!
This is Declan.
Declan.
It's a squat.
Looks like a squat.
This is 110 kilos for 4 reps. I wrote down that Declan plays soccer.
Okay.
Just for reference. And he says, if I feel like I'm going to get stuck, it will be in the middle part of the lift. Quite comfortable in the hole.
Yeah, that's pretty much just how squats go, right? Not many people miss here, especially with this high bar, very deep squat. What happens is we miss when we have to really start producing force. Like this is the point where, and somebody who's maybe a bit more of a biomechanist can explain this better than I can, but I'm pretty sure this is the point where there's the most torque demand for us to produce force, and we're the most disadvantaged in terms of trying to push against the bar. So this, or slightly below this, or slightly above this, is pretty much where anyone is gonna miss a raw squat, generally speaking. Oh, we got multiple angles here, okay. Let's see. So, I mean, overall, you got a really solid squat here, Declan. I think I would love to see you get into a little bit more of a low bar pattern. That's just my own personal preference. Again, my critiques are going to be tailored to lifting more weight. I can't help it. But getting that bar just a tiny little bit more down your shoulders, and not even necessarily a big low bar versus high bar kind of guy, but just getting that bar somewhere where it's not gonna kind of like roll up on you a little bit there. The other thing I think we're doing is there it is, right there. So before you start, see where we finish? I actually like this elbow and shoulder position better. This is protracting, it's gonna pull your shoulder blades forward. It's gonna make you feel more upright, which a lot of people really try to get in the squat because that feeling of tipping or hinging can be kind of uncomfortable and feel like, oh, I'm gonna fall forward. But that extra cranking of your shoulder blades forward is causing us to kind of crumple in the upper back as we go through this. And that's one of the reasons that I'm recommending maybe a bit of a lower bar position. Because as we go through this set, we start to kind of round out in the upper back, and I can see us, if we push this a little more, that bar is gonna pull us more and more flexed, more and more forward. So that would be the first thing that I would look at, is maybe adjusting bar position, and definitely trying to keep the elbows more in line with the trunk. Think about pulling your elbows kind of in towards your sides instead of just wedging them forwards. And you can really see it from the front there, right? You wedge them forwards, and then we sit down. This is all, okay, this is one set from the front. But those are probably the biggest things. The other thing, again, if you want to lift more weight, cut that depth a little bit. I get a lot of kickback on that from people. They're like, whoa, you want me to squat higher? What the hell is this? But what I would recommend is if you are, one of those people who needs to have that depth, and maybe it's a hypertrophy thing, maybe it's a standard you hold yourself to, that's all well and good. You can have a high bar squat day where you go ass to grass and you bounce off the floor. But if you're gonna have a day where you're trying to squat big weights, cut them just below parallel. Like, let's see. So like that is probably still very deep, right? We've got the top of the knee here. We've got the hip crease here. We're looking pretty darn good. This angle also is gonna make everything look a little higher. If we could see this from a straight on angle from the side, this is absolutely basement, right? I don't think you could possibly get any deeper there. So again, it's a difference in training intent, but those would be my advices. That would be my advices. And heck, you asked for it, so you got it. All right, that's gonna be it for today. Hope everybody enjoyed. If you did, if you have questions, ask them in the comments below, like it, subscribe. We got Form Check Friday live streams every Friday, Twitch and YouTube. And if you like this style of check-in, we do them every week in the Calgary Barbell app. So go and check that out at calgarybarbell.com. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.